Good morning, this is Dusty with Of Course I'll Play It, and I want to start this video blog off right up front by apologizing for the breathiness of my mic. I promise if I do more of these videos, I will absolutely get a better recording setup, but right now it's just good old Ventrilo headset, which puts the microphone right next to my mouth, and I tend to talk a lot and then take deep breaths, so straight up front, sorry about that guys. Maybe I can get some music to overlay into the background and hide it. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, we're talking about Blade and Soul today. Blade and Soul is a Korean MMO that's been out for about 3 years now, actually, in Korea and China, but it's only just now released in North America and in Europe. So there's a lot of hype about it in amongst my social circles right now, and a lot of people are trying to decide if they want to play it or not. So what I thought I'd do is I'd put together sort of an overview video of the game itself. Now, I am not by any means an expert in the game. I've been playing for about a week and a half. I'm level 25 on the North American servers, and I played for about a week or so back in the beta. Not by any means I'm expert, but I have kind of figured out a couple of things about the game and sort of, in general, how the game works and some of the more fundamental aspects. So that's what I thought I'd share today, so to give you an idea, if this is something you're thinking about playing, then to help you make that decision. Okay, so let's get to it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about are the races and the classes. There are no racial passives in Blade and Soul, so you don't have to worry about the race you selection determining your stats in any way. But race does limit your class selection, so certain classes are only available to certain races. There are no real strong role archetypes in Blade and Soul. Combat and roles are very much like Guild Wars in that way, in that some classes are a little bit more suitable for some roles than others, but when you form a dungeon and you put 6 people in your group, they'll take any 6 classes, certainly for all the leveling dungeons that we've encountered so far. With that in mind, though, some classes are in fact a little bit better or more suited for some roles than others. It's a very soft sort of determination, but near as I can tell, this is sort of how it plays out. Blade Master and Kung Fu Master and perhaps the Destroyer tend to be most suited for tanking type roles. For pure DPS, the Assassin, the Force Master certainly, and the Summoner seem to be straight up mostly DPS classes. And then for support kind of roles, really, like I said, your mileage may vary, but it appears that the Assassin has some support capabilities, the Summoner does as well, and maybe the Destroyer and the Blade Dancer as well. But again, all playstyles are really sort of available. From what I've read, there are no real OP classes in the end game, so you can kind of find the playstyle that you like and play that class. One thing I do want to mention about difficulty, if you look at the classes over here, you'll see that each one has a difficulty associated with it. That's really not so much how hard the class is to play. It kind of pertains to how spot on you have to be with your execution of your combos and how tight the little window is when you execute combos. That's why Kung Fu Master listed is a really difficult class, because there are windows for getting blocks in and counter punches, and for executing their abilities is a little tighter than it is for others. So be aware of difficulty, because if you're playing on a slower machine or if you're playing in a location that has a really bad ping rate, Blade and Soul will straight up punish you for not being able to execute your combos in a really timely fashion. So that's mostly what you want to be aware of in terms of class difficulty. One other thing that I think is worth mentioning about the races in Blade and Soul is your character's appearance, especially with relation to female characters' appearances. Your appearance is determined entirely by your outfit, and the outfit is a single slot that goes on your inventory and determines pretty much completely how you look. But they have a unique outfit variation for each of the races, so it will look differently depending on the race you select. In general, my experience has been that the Gon tend to have the most risque outfits and show the most skin. That may be awesome, or that may be exactly what you're not looking for. I don't judge, but I just want you to know. The Jin tend to be sort of run the middle in terms of risqueness for their outfits. Certainly the Lin are all very, very cute. Thank heavens for that. And the Yun tend to be a little bit more conservative, although again, this is really sort of a sweeping generalization, but it has certainly been what I've seen so far. So what about general gameplay? So first let's talk about combat. Combat in Blade and Soul is without a doubt the most enjoyable aspect of the game for me. What you need to know is that it's very heavily combo based in the sense that you'll have an ability bar. You can see I've got my typical ability bar, but you only have 5 or 6 abilities up on the bar at any time. But those abilities swap out based on context. So You may start a fight with an opener, and then it'll swap out to something else that you use to counterpunch with. You'll see abilities kind of pop up on the right-hand side there and go down as they become available. So new abilities become available based on context. And of course, you know, you can block at period times, and then you can counterpunch to come out of a block at particular times. So I've got a block going on right there. And then that opens up a reverse move that comes around to the back, that may trigger off something else. So you can kind of get an idea. Essentially, if I had to describe Blade and Soul in a single sentence, it would be Street Fighter, the MMO. That's how tight and combo based the fighting is and the combat is. There are also a variety of combat mechanics that tie into it. The Blade Master, for instance, gathers focus or gathers chi and then consumes chi with other abilities. And each class has their own sort of unique combat mechanics. But in general, the game overall is, like I said, very combo based. This may be a great thing for you. It may not be so much fun for you. It just depends on sort of if you like that style of gameplay. But I have certainly enjoyed it, and I even find quests like Kill 10 Rats to just be an absolute pleasure to do. One other brief thing I want to say about combat, and more specifically PvP combat. PvP in this game is faction based, and you flag yourself for PvP by putting on an outfit of a particular faction. And so in that way there is no non-consensual PvP. Unlike many Korean MMOs, you don't get to level 25 and then suddenly have to deal with roving gang squads out in the open world. You either wear your faction uniform or you don't, and if you don't ever put on your faction uniform and don't step into an arena, you can never deal with PvP if you so desire. So I think that's kind of a cool thing. So what about gear and itemization? Well, Blade and Soul is sort of a unique beast, at least in my own experience for this sort of thing. Your stats don't live on your armor. Your stats live on this soul pizza. It's called a soul shield, but I call it soul pizza. And you collect the slices of the soul pizza from quests and chests and things like that. And you slot them in there. And you get set bonuses for collecting all the same pieces of a various set. And you get set bonuses at 3 and 5 and 8 pieces. So, and you can have 2 of these soul shields going at any given time. And you can swap back and forth between the 2 of them. So you can have 2 specs running for particular cases, based on whatever it is that you're doing. Additionally, your weapon, you gain your Hung Moon weapon at a very early level, and you don't really swap out your weapon or weapons as you level up. You increase and evolve and improve your weapon by feeding it other weapons that you find along the way, other sort of trash weapons that are not as good. Periodically, your weapon will reach a max level, and you have to find what you call a breakthrough piece, and the breakthrough piece will allow you to evolve the weapon into the next stage. It's not terribly convoluted, but it's certainly a different kind of itemization than what you might be used to. It's certainly taken a little bit for me to get used to. But the big thing to take away from here is that you evolve your weapons, you don't replace them. Your stats don't live on your armor, they live on this soul shield. But you collect the pieces of the soul shield and in much the same way that you would collect armor pieces. This does provide sort of a nice or an interesting characteristic in that your appearance, again, is not in any way based on your stat allocations. Your appearance is based entirely upon whatever sort of outfit that you're wearing, as opposed to whatever pieces of armor that you've collected. A little bit different, certainly interesting, but something to keep in mind. So what about crafting? Crafting is very similar to what you've probably seen in some other free-to-play games, in that it's heavily time-based. There are both gathering professions and crafting professions, but either way the interaction is the same. You essentially send people off to gather materials or to craft the things, and then they come back some amount of period of time later and you pick those things up. The one thing to know about crafting that is key is that every time you remote pick something up or remote order a new order, you are charged money for it. So certainly in the very early levels, you should be aware of that, and you might want to go back to the crafters to place new orders and to pick up old orders. But in general, it's a pretty straightforward system. I'm not a huge fan, but there it is. So let's talk about skills. The first time you bring up the skill tree is like level 3, and all they do is they bring it up and then they tell you to bring it right down. Skills are so sort of convoluted and confusing in Blade and Soul, they don't even ask you to deal with them until you get to level 17. And the first time you bring this thing up and you look at it, you're going to be like, what's going on here? Essentially each skill, each base skill can have its own skill tree and can be evolved or modified or in some cases improved, and in some cases even have other skills unlocked as you spend skill points and progress down the particular skill tree for that particular skill. The most important thing, actually the 2 most important things to know about skills as a beginner in Blade and Soul is 1, the icon view is a lot more sane way of looking at the skills, and 2, there is a recommended button in the upper right hand corner, so that if you don't want to like spend all your time figuring out where in the hell to place your points, you can select a play style, and then click that button and then spend the points, and Blade and Soul will spend the points for you in a way that, if not optimal, is at least not broken. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about is Blade and Soul's monetization. Blade and Soul is a very free-to-play game, and by that I mean it is replete with free-to-play mechanics. That may be the worst thing in the world for you, or that may be, you may be just fine with that, but it certainly is what it is. If you open up the store, you'll see all the typical things you expect to find in a free-to-play game. A lot of vanity items, a lot of consumables, keys that allow you to open up chests that you find in the world. Of course, bag space is absolutely at a premium, as you might expect. The one thing that I would recommend with Blade and Soul, in terms of if you're going to spend your money, is to go ahead and spend the money on one of the beginners packs to allow yourself to get some premium membership. Right now the login queues are terrible on the North American servers, and the premium membership jumps you to the front of that queue, and they're not hesitant to remind you of that every time that you log in. Certainly worked for me. I gave them a little bit of money and expect to be playing the game for at least another 30 days or so, so it was worth the money spent to not have to wait on those queues. And that's pretty much it. Overall, I'm really enjoying this game, actually quite a bit more than I expected to be. It's not perfect by any means. Not a big fan of the crafting, and I'm still not entirely sure if I like the itemization or not. It's certainly taking me a little while to kind of get used to it. But gosh, the combat is so much fun. The world is so pretty. I expect I'll be in this game for quite a while to go. If you found this video useful, please be sure and give it a like down below. And don't hesitate to drop by the blog. I've got it linked in the comments. Until next time, thank you so much for watching.